Hi guys, welcome to First Chapter Friday. I have a historical fiction chapter book for you today. So to refresh your memory on what that is, that means that this is taking place in an actual event in history. It'll be taking place during World War II, so that was a real event that happened in our world. But the characters in here are made up. However, some of the things that they're going to go through and in the story happen to people in real life, but the characters are pretend. However, the event is real. So this is Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry, and it is a one checkout at a time book that you can find in Destiny. So if you like this one, though, you might be able to find it on Sora, or if the library's open back up, you can definitely pop in there too. This is what the book cover looks like. Destiny Discover, you guys know how to get to that. You go to the little tree from Classlink in our library resources, and then Destiny Discover will pop up for you, and then you can look for Number of the Stars. All right, so here we go. There's a lot of pages here. Let's see. Why Are You Running? Chapter 1. I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. Anne-Marie adjusted the thick leather pack on her back so that her school books balanced evenly. Ready? She looked at her best friend. Ellen made a face. No, she said, laughing. You know I can't beat you. My legs aren't as long. Can't we just walk like civilized people? She was a stocky 10-year-old, unlike lanky Anne-Marie. We have to practice for the athletic meet on Friday. I know I'm going to win the girls' race this week. I was second last week. I've been practicing every day. Come on, Ellen. Anne-Marie pleaded, eyeing the distance to the next corner of the Copenhagen Street. Please? Ellen hesitated, then nodded and shifted her own rucksack of books against her shoulder. Well, all right. Ready, she said. Go, shouted Anne-Marie, and the two girls were off, racing along the residential sidewalk. Anne-Marie's silverly blonde hair flew behind her, and Ellen's dark pigtails bounced against her shoulders. Wait for me! Wailed little Christy, left behind, but the two older girls weren't listening. Anne-Marie outdistanced her friend quickly, even though one of her shoes came untied, and she sped along the street called Ozaborg, past the small shops and cafes of her neighborhood here in northeast Copenhagen. Laughing, she skirted an elderly lady in black who carried a shopping bag made of string. A young woman pushing a baby in a carriage moved aside to make way. The corner was just ahead. Anne-Marie looked up, panting. Just as she reached the corner, her laughter stopped. Her heart seemed to skip a beat. Fight! Soldier ordered in a stern voice. The German word was as familiar as it was frightening. Anne-Marie had heard it often enough before it had ever been directed at her, but never had been directed at her until now. Behind her, Ellen also slowed and stopped. Far back, little Christy was plodding along, her face in a pout because the girls hadn't waited for her. Anne-Marie stared up. There were two of them. That meant two helmets, two sets of cold eyes glaring at her, and four tall, shiny boots planted firmly on the sidewalk, blocking her path to home. And it meant two rifles. Gripped in the hands of the soldier, she stared at the rifles first. Then she finally looked into the face of the soldier who had ordered her to halt. Why are you running? The harsh voice asked. His Danish was very poor. 3 years, Anne-Marie thought with contempt. 3 years they've been in our country, and they still can't speak our language. I was racing with my friends, she answered politely. We have races at school every Friday, and I wanted to do well, and her voice trailed away. The sentence unfinished. Don't talk too much, she told herself. Just answer them, that's all. She glanced back. Ellen was motionless on the sidewalk. A few yards behind her, farther back, Christy was still sulking and walking slowly towards the corner. Nearby, a woman had come to the doorway of a shop and was standing silently, watching. One of the soldiers, the taller one, moved towards her. Anne-Marie recognized him as the one she and Ellen always called in whispers the giraffe, because of his height and the long neck that extended from his stiff collar. He and his partner were always on this corner. He prodded the corner of her backpack with the stock of his rifle. Anne-Marie trembled. What is in there? He asked loudly. From the corner of his eye, she saw the shopkeeper move quietly back into the shadows of the doorway out of sight. School books, she answered truthfully. Are you a good student? The soldier asked. He seemed to be sneering. Yes. What's your name? Anne-Marie Johansson. Your friend, is she a good student too? He was looking beyond her at Ellen. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm trying to get the book back up. Ellen, who hadn't moved. Anne-Marie looked back, too, and saw that Ellen's face, usually rosy-cheeked, was pale, and her dark eyes were wide. She nodded at the soldier. "Better than me," she said. "What's her name, Ellen? And who is this?" he asked, looking at Anne-Marie's side. Christy had appeared there, suddenly scowling at everyone. "My little sister." She reached down for Christy's hand, but Christy, was always stubborn, refused and put her hands on her hips defiantly. The soldier reached down and stroked her little sister's short, tangled curls. "Stand still, Christy," Anne-Marie ordered silently, praying that somehow the obstinate 5-year-old would receive the message. But Christy reached up and pushed the soldier's hand away. "Don't," she said loudly. Both soldiers began to laugh. They spoke to each other in rapid German, and Anne-Marie couldn't understand. "She is pretty, like my own little girl," the tall one said in a more pleasant voice. Anne-Marie tried to smile politely. "Go home, all of you. Go study your school books, and don't run. You look like hoodlums when you run." The two soldiers turned away. Quickly, Anne-Marie reached down again and grabbed her sister's hand before Christy could resist. Hurrying the little girl along, she ran to the corner. In a moment, Ellen was beside her. They walked quickly, not speaking, with Christy between them towards the large apartment building where both families lived. When they were almost home, Ellen whispered suddenly, "I was so scared." "Me too," Anne-Marie whispered back. As they turned to enter the building, both girls looked straight ahead towards the door. They did it purposely so that they would not catch the eyes of the attention of two more soldiers who stood with their guns at the corner as well. Christy scurried ahead of them through the door, chattering about the picture she was bringing home from kindergarten to show Mama. For Christy, the soldiers were simply part of the landscape, something that that had always been there, on every corner, as unimportant as lampposts throughout her remembered life. "Are you going to tell your mother?" Ellen asked Anne-Marie as they trudged together up the stairs. "I'm not. My mother would be upset." "No, I won't either. Mama would probably scold me for running on the street." She said goodbye to Ellen on the second floor where Ellen lived and continued to the third, practicing in her mind a cheerful greeting for her mother and a smile, a description of today's spelling test in which she had done well. She was too late. Christy had gotten there first. "And he poked Anne-Marie's book bag with his gun, and then he grabbed my hair." Christy was chattering as if she took her sweater off in the center of the apartment living room. "But I wasn't scared. Anne-Marie was, and Ellen too, but not me." Mrs. Johansson rose quickly from the chair by the window where she was sitting. Mrs. Rosen, Ellen's mother, was there too, in the opposite chair. They had been having coffee together as they did many afternoons. There had been no real coffee in Copenhagen since the beginning of the Nazi occupation. Not even any real tea. The mother sipped on hot water flavored with herbs. "Anne-Marie, what happened? What is Christy talking about?" her mother asked anxiously. "Where's Ellen?" Mrs. Rosen had a frightened look. "Ellen's in your apartment, and she didn't realize you were here," Anne-Marie explained. "Don't worry, it wasn't anything. It was the two soldiers who stand on the corner of Osterborg. Have you seen them? You know, the tall one with the long neck, the one who looks like a silly giraffe?" She told her mother and Miss Rosen of the incident, trying to make it sound humorous and unimportant. But their uneasy looks didn't change. "I slapped his hand and shouted at him," Christy announced importantly. "No, she didn't, Mama," Anne-Marie reassured her mother. "She's exaggerating, as she always does." Mrs. Johansson moved to the window and looked down on the street below. The Copenhagen neighborhood was quiet. It looked the same as always, people coming and going from shops, children at play, the soldiers on the corner. She spoke in a low voice to Ellen's mother. "They must be edgy because of the latest resistance incidents. Did you read in Die Freie Zeitung about the bombings in Hillerod and Nierobro?" Although she pretended to be absorbed in unpacking her school books, Anne-Marie listened, and she knew that her mother was referring to. The Free Zeitung, the Free Danes, was an illegal newspaper. Peter Nielsen brought it to them occasionally, carefully folded and hidden among his ordinary books and papers. And Mama always burned it after she and Papa had read it. Anne-Marie heard Mama and Papa talk, sometimes at night, about the news they received that way. News of sabotage against the Nazis, bombs hidden and exploded in the factories that produced war materials, and industrial railroad lines damaged so that the goods could not be transported. And she knew that what resistance meant. Papa had explained when she had overheard the word and asked. The resistance fighters were Danish people. No one knew who, because they were very secret, who were determined to bring harm to the Nazis however they could. They damaged the German trucks and cars and bombed their factories. They were very brave. Sometimes they were caught and killed. "I must go and speak to Ellen," Mrs. Rosen said, moving towards the door. "You girls walk a different way to school tomorrow. Promise me. Anne-Marie and Ellen will promise too." "We will, Mrs. Rosen, but what does it matter? There are German soldiers on every corner." "They will remember your faces," Mrs. Rosen said, turning in the doorway by the hall. "It is important to be one of the crowd, always. Be one of many. Be sure that they never have a reason to remember your face." She disappeared into the hall and closed the door behind her. He'll remember my face, Mama, Christy announced happily, because he said I looked like his little girl. He said I was pretty. If he had such a pretty little girl, why doesn't he go back to her like a good father? Mrs. Johansson murmured, stroking Christy's cheek. Why doesn't he go back to his own country? Mama, is there anything to eat? Anne-Marie asked, hoping to take her mother's mind away from the soldiers. Take some bread and give a piece to your sister. With butter? Christy asked hopefully. No butter, her mother replied. You know that. Christy sighed as Anne-Marie went to the bread box in the kitchen. I wish I could have a cupcake, she said. A big yellow cupcake with pink frosting. Her mother laughed. For a little girl, you have a long memory, she told Christy. There hasn't been any butter or sugar for cupcakes for a long time. A year at least. When will there be cupcakes again? When the war ends, Mrs. Johansson said. She glanced through the window down the street corner where the soldiers stood, their faces impassive beneath the metal helmets. When the soldiers leave. All right. So that was the first chapter of Number of the Stars. It kind of sets you up in the feel of what it would like to live in that era and what those girls are going through. Things are going to change quite quickly in this book, and there's going to be a lot of action and adventure, even though it's historical fiction. I hope you check out this book and enjoy it as much as I do, and have a great week.